People think they understand how politics works. They watch the news, follow their representatives on Twitter, maybe even call their senator's office once in a while when they're really fired up about something. They think they see the whole picture. They have no idea. They can't even imagine what actually happens in those marble hallways when the cameras are off and the public isn't watching. My name is David Brennan, and for 4 years I worked as a senior policy advisor for Senator Patricia Holloway, a moderate Democrat from Virginia. I'm not going to tell you I was naive when I started. I'd gone to Georgetown, done internships, understood that politics involved compromise and deal-making. But I genuinely believed that at the end of the day, most people in government were trying to do the right thing, even if they disagreed about what right meant. Then came the Infrastructure and Technology Modernization Act of 2024. And everything I believed about American democracy got torn to shreds. I need to be careful about what I say here. I signed NDAs. I've received threats. My career in politics is over, and I've accepted that. But what I witnessed needs to be told, even if I can never prove half of it, even if it ruins what's left of my life. Because if people don't know what their government is really doing, then we don't have a democracy anymore. We just have the illusion of one. Let me start at the beginning. The ITMA, as we called it internally, was introduced in March 2024 as a bipartisan infrastructure bill. On paper, it looked great: funding for roads, bridges, broadband expansion in rural areas, upgrades to the power grid, investment in renewable energy. The kind of stuff everyone could get behind regardless of party. It had broad public support, and even the usual partisan talking heads on cable news couldn't find much to criticize. Senator Holloway was one of the co-sponsors. She genuinely believed in infrastructure investment, had campaigned on it, and saw this as a legacy-defining piece of legislation. I believed in it too. We'd worked on some of the language around broadband expansion, making sure rural Virginia would benefit. The bill was over 1,200 pages long. That's not unusual for major legislation. You need that much space to cover all the technical details, funding mechanisms, implementation procedures, and so on. What is unusual is when significant portions of a bill get added or modified in the final weeks before a vote, when most staffers and even senators haven't had time to fully review the changes. That's what happened with ITMA. In late June, about 2 weeks before the scheduled vote, I was called into a meeting with Senator Holloway and 3 people I'd never met before. They were introduced as consultants working with the bill's primary sponsors. No last names, no business cards, no explanation of who they represented or why they were there. The senator seemed uncomfortable, which immediately put me on edge. Patricia Holloway was one of the most composed people I'd ever met. She'd been in the Senate for 12 years, had handled everything from terrorist attacks to government shutdowns without breaking a sweat. Seeing her fidget with her water glass during a routine meeting was bizarre. One of the consultants, a man in his 50s, expensive suit, the kind of generic handsome you see on pharmaceutical commercials, did most of the talking. "We need to discuss some additions to the ITMA," he said, sliding a folder across the table to the senator. "Provisions that will be added to Section 847, starting on page 923. I reached for the folder, but the senator put her hand on it first. "I'll review it," she said to me, her voice tight. "That's all for now, David." I was being dismissed from a meeting about legislation I'd helped craft. "Senator, I should probably." "That's all, David," she repeated, not looking at me. I left, confused, and more than a little pissed off. I went back to my desk and tried to focus on other work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. About an hour later, Senator Holloway called me back to her office. She looked pale, almost shaken. "Close the door," she said. I did. "David, I need you to listen to me very carefully. The ITMA is going to pass. I'm going to vote for it. You're going to tell anyone who asks that you've reviewed the bill thoroughly and that it's everything we've been working toward." "Okay," I said slowly. "Senator, what was in that folder?" She looked at me for a long moment. "Provisions that are necessary for national security. That's all you need to know. National security provisions in an infrastructure bill. It's complicated. There are intersections. Technology infrastructure, cybersecurity, that sort of thing. It's above my clearance level to fully explain, and it's definitely above yours." That didn't make sense. Senator Holloway was on the Intelligence Committee. Very few things were above her clearance level. I'd like to at least read the new sections, I said. It's my job to. Your job, she interrupted, is to support this office and this legislation. The additions are classified. You don't have the clearance to review them. Neither do most senators, frankly. We're being asked to trust that they're necessary, and that's what we're going to do. I stared at her. You're asking me to support legislation neither of us has fully read, based on the word of 3 people who wouldn't even give their last names. I'm not asking, David. I'm telling you. This bill is going to pass, with or without our support. But if we oppose it, there will be consequences. Serious consequences. Is that a threat? Did they threaten you? She didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. Senator, if someone is threatening a member of Congress, leave it alone, she said firmly. Votes in 2 weeks. We support the bill. That's final. I left her office feeling like I'd just stepped into a bad political thriller. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be how things actually worked. But the look on Senator Holloway's face told me it absolutely was. Over the next few days, I started digging. Quietly, carefully, not using official channels. I called friends who worked for other senators, asked casual questions about the ITMA, whether they'd noticed anything strange about last-minute additions. Most of them said no, everything seemed normal. But a few, a very few, got quiet on the phone. Changed the subject. One guy I'd known since college told me to stop asking questions and hung up on me. That's when I knew this was bigger than just Senator Holloway. I managed to get my hands on an updated version of the bill about a week before the vote. It had been filed with the Senate Clerk's office, so it was technically public record, but it wasn't posted online yet. I stayed late one night and read through the entire thing, all 1,200 plus pages. Most of it was what I expected. Infrastructure funding, implementation procedures, oversight mechanisms. Then I got to Section 847. The new provisions, buried in the middle of dense technical language about broadband expansion, gave the federal government sweeping powers to monitor and control digital infrastructure in the name of national security. I'm talking about the ability to access any digital communication without a warrant, to force technology companies to install backdoors in their systems, to shut down internet access in any region deemed a security threat, to classify any information as sensitive and criminalize its distribution. It was the Patriot Act on steroids, except this time it wasn't being openly debated. It was being hidden in an infrastructure bill that everyone assumed was just about roads and bridges. I sat at my desk, reading and rereading these provisions, feeling sick. This was surveillance state shit. This was authoritarian government shit. And it was being snuck through Congress disguised as a bill about fixing potholes. I knew I had to do something. But what? I couldn't go to the press, I'd signed NDAs, and I'd be fired and probably prosecuted before the story even ran. I couldn't convince Senator Holloway to oppose it, she'd already made it clear she was voting yes no matter what. I couldn't rally other senators, most of them hadn't read the bill carefully enough to even know these provisions existed, and the ones who did know were either supporting it or too scared to speak up. I felt completely powerless. The night before the vote, I was working late again, trying to figure out my next move, when I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my office. It was almost midnight. The building should have been nearly empty. I looked up to see one of the consultants from that meeting standing in my doorway. The pharmaceutical commercial guy. David Brennan, he said, smiling pleasantly. Burning the midnight oil. My heart was pounding. Can I help you with something? He walked into my office uninvited and sat down across from my desk. I wanted to have a conversation with you. Off the record. Just between us. I don't even know who you are. And you don't need to. But I know who you are. I know you've been asking questions about the ITMA. I know you've been reading sections of the bill you probably shouldn't have access to. I know you're thinking about doing something foolish. I tried to keep my voice steady. I'm just doing my job. Your job is to support Senator Holloway and the legislation she supports. Not to play investigative journalist. Not to rock the boat. Not to interfere with things that are far above your pay grade. Who the fuck are you? I demanded. Who do you work for? He smiled again, that same pleasant, empty smile. I work for people who ensure that necessary measures are taken to protect American interests. That's all you need to know. What you need to understand, David, is that the ITMA is going to pass. Tomorrow. With overwhelming bipartisan support. It's going to become law. And nothing you do will stop that. Then why are you here? Because I want to make sure you understand the consequences of trying. You have a younger sister, don't you? Emma. 26, lives in Portland, works for a nonprofit. My blood went cold. Don't you fucking. I'm not threatening anyone, he said calmly. I'm just illustrating that actions have consequences. You could go to the press with your concerns about the bill. Maybe some fringe outlet would run the story. Maybe it would get some attention for a few days. But the bill would still pass. And you would lose your job, your career, your credibility. You'd probably face legal consequences for violating your NDA. And who knows? Maybe your sister's nonprofit would suddenly face an IRS audit. Maybe her apartment would be broken into. Maybe she'd start having problems that seem random but never quite stop. I was shaking with rage and fear. You're talking about the United States government threatening American citizens. I'm talking about the reality of power, he said, standing up. You can accept it and live a comfortable life, or you can fight it and lose everything. Your choice. But make it quickly, because tomorrow that bill passes, and tomorrow your window to cause problems closes. Choose wisely, David. He walked out, leaving me sitting there in shock. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my apartment, staring at my phone, trying to decide what to do. Call Emma and warn her? Warn her about what? That mysterious government operatives might target her if I spoke out against a bill? She'd think I'd lost my mind. Go to the press anyway? And risk everything he'd threatened? Do nothing? Except that I was complicit in the passage of legislation that would fundamentally alter American civil liberties? In the end, I did nothing. I'm not proud of it. I tell myself I was protecting my sister, protecting myself, being realistic about what one person could accomplish against that kind of power. But the truth is simpler, I was scared. They broke me with a single conversation. The next day, the ITMA passed the Senate 87-13. It passed the House 2 days later with similar margins. The President signed it into law a week after that. The press coverage was overwhelmingly positive. A rare bipartisan achievement. A major investment in America's future. Everyone from progressive activists to conservative commentators praised it. Nobody talked about Section 847. Nobody even seemed to know it existed. I kept my head down for the next few months, doing my job, trying to pretend everything was normal. But I started noticing things. Small things at first. A journalist who'd been critical of the administration suddenly stopped publishing. His paper said he'd taken a leave of absence for personal reasons. A tech CEO who'd spoken out against government surveillance announced his resignation. The company's statement said it was for health reasons. A senator who'd voted against the ITMA, one of only 13, suddenly faced a primary challenger backed by massive dark money contributions. He lost his seat. Were these things connected to the bill? To Section 847? I couldn't prove it. But the pattern was there if you knew to look for it. In January 2025, I finally quit. I told Senator Holloway I was burned out, needed a break from politics, wanted to try the private sector. She understood. I think she was relieved, actually. I was a reminder of the compromise she'd made, the threat she'd received, the principles she'd abandoned. I moved back to Ohio, where I grew up. I got a job doing communications consulting for local businesses. It's boring and safe and completely removed from federal politics. But I can't forget what I saw. I can't stop thinking about that bill, about those provisions that nobody's talking about. About what might be happening right now under their authority. Because here's the thing, I don't know what they're doing with those powers. Section 847 is being implemented by agencies I don't have access to anymore, using authorities that are classified, affecting people who might not even know they're being monitored or controlled. Maybe they're using it responsibly. Maybe it really is necessary for national security. Maybe I'm paranoid and those journalists and CEOs and politicians really did resign or fail for unrelated reasons. But I don't think so. I think we passed a law that fundamentally changed the relationship between the American government and its citizens. I think we gave up essential liberties in exchange for promised security, and we did it without even realizing what we were trading away. I think most of the senators who voted for it didn't understand what they were voting for, and the ones who did understand were too scared to vote against it. And I think the American people have no idea any of this happened because it was buried in 1,200 pages of legislation about roads and bridges and broadband internet. I'm writing this because I can't stay silent anymore. Even if nobody believes me. Even if it costs me whatever's left of my career. Even if those consultants make good on their threats. People need to know that their government is not what they think it is. That laws are being passed without real debate or oversight. That threats and intimidation are being used against elected officials. That the democracy we're taught to believe in is increasingly just a facade. I don't have proof of most of what I'm saying. The meeting with the consultant wasn't recorded. The threats weren't in writing. Section 847 exists, but its implementation is classified. I can't prove the connection between the bill and the journalists who stopped publishing or the CEO who resigned or any of it. All I have is my word, my experience, and the absolute certainty that what I witnessed was real. Will anything change because I'm speaking out? Probably not. The bill is law. The powers have been granted. The system that allowed this to happen is still in place, stronger than ever. But maybe someone who reads this will start paying more attention. Maybe they'll actually read the bills their representatives are voting for instead of just trusting the headlines. Maybe they'll start asking questions about provisions buried in dense legislative language. Maybe they'll demand real transparency and accountability from their government. Or maybe nothing will change. Maybe this is just how things work now, and we're all too comfortable or too scared or too overwhelmed to do anything about it. I genuinely don't know anymore. What I do know is that I saw something that fundamentally changed my understanding of American democracy, and I can't keep pretending I didn't. I can't go back to believing that the system works the way we're told it works. I can't unsee what I saw. 3 weeks ago, my sister Emma called me. She'd just been contacted by the IRS about an audit of her nonprofit. Probably a coincidence. Probably routine. But when she told me, my blood went cold, and I knew it wasn't. They wanted me to know they hadn't forgotten. They wanted me to know that speaking out would have consequences. And they were right. Publishing this will probably have consequences. I'll probably face legal action for violating my NDA. My consulting business will probably suffer. I might face harassment or worse. But I'm done being silent. I'm done letting fear control me. If they want to come after me for telling the truth, let them come. At least people will know what happened. At least some small part of the story will be out there. To anyone reading this who works in government, who has access to information about what Section 847 is actually being used for, please, speak out. Find a way. Use anonymous channels, contact journalists, leak documents, whatever it takes. The American people deserve to know what's being done in their name. To everyone else, pay attention. Read the bills. Ask questions. Don't assume that just because something has bipartisan support or positive press coverage that it's actually good. Demand transparency. Demand accountability. Don't let fear or apathy or the complexity of the system stop you from engaging with how you're governed. Because if we don't fight for our democracy, we're going to wake up one day and realize we don't have one anymore. We'll have something that looks like democracy, talks like democracy, but functions as something else entirely. Maybe we're already there. Maybe that happened decades ago and I'm just naive enough to only be noticing it now. Maybe the ideals I believed in were always just ideals, never reality. But I have to believe it's not too late. I have to believe that speaking out matters, that truth matters, that enough people will care about this to demand change. Otherwise, what was it all for? Why did I spend 4 years of my life working in politics if not because I believed in the possibility of good government, of representative democracy, of a system that actually serves its people? I don't have answers. I just have questions and the hope that someone, somewhere, will care enough to start asking them too. The Infrastructure and Technology Modernization Act of 2024 is law. Section 847 is being implemented right now, while you read this, affecting your rights and freedoms in ways you probably don't even realize. And almost nobody knows it exists. That's not democracy. I don't know what it is, but it's not democracy. I'm David Brennan. I worked for Senator Patricia Holloway. I helped write parts of the ITMA before the classified provisions were added. I was threatened into silence. And now I'm breaking that silence because someone has to. Believe me or don't. Investigate or don't. Care or don't. But you can't say you weren't warned. Update, posted 3 hours after original post. I'm adding this update because things have started happening fast, and I need to document it while I still can. About an hour after I posted this, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was Senator Holloway. "David," she said, her voice tight. "What have you done?" "What I should have done a year ago," I said. "You need to delete that post. Right now. Before this gets worse. It's already out there. People have seen it. It's been screenshot and shared. Deleting it won't accomplish anything." There was a long pause. Then she said something that chilled me to my core. "They know where you are. They're already moving. You have maybe an hour, probably less. You need to go somewhere public, somewhere with cameras and witnesses. Do it now." "Senator. I'm sorry, David. I'm so sorry. I should have protected you. I should have protected all of us. But it's too late now. Just, be careful. And whatever you do, don't trust anyone who claims they want to help. Especially if they're from the government." She hung up. I'm writing this from a 24-hour diner in downtown Cincinnati, surrounded by people, security cameras visible. My laptop is open, this window is visible. If something happens to me, it will be witnessed. I've also sent copies of everything I know, including documents I probably shouldn't have kept, to 3 different journalists at 3 different publications. Dead man switch situation. If I don't check in every 12 hours, they'll publish everything. I don't know if that will protect me. Honestly, I doubt it will. But at least the information will get out. If you're reading this update, it means I'm still okay. If I stop updating, well, you'll know something happened. To my family, especially Emma, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for bringing this into your lives. I'm sorry for being too much of a coward to act sooner and too much of a fool to stay quiet longer. I love you. Stay safe. Don't try to investigate what happened to me if something does happen. Just stay safe. To everyone else, the story I told is true. Every word of it. And if I disappear or discredit myself or suddenly announce this was all a hoax, don't believe it. It's real. It's all real. And it's happening right now." Final update, posted 6 hours after original post. Still here. Still okay. The promised hour came and went without incident. Maybe Senator Holloway was mistaken. Maybe the threat isn't as immediate as she thought. Or maybe sitting in a crowded public place actually worked as a deterrent. I've been contacted by 2 of the journalists I sent information to. They're reviewing what I gave them. One seemed skeptical but interested. The other seemed genuinely alarmed and said they'd been hearing similar stories from other sources. So maybe I'm not alone in this. Maybe other people have seen the same things I have and are finally ready to talk about them. Or maybe this is all part of some larger plan I don't understand. Maybe I'm being allowed to speak out because it serves some purpose I can't see. Maybe my speaking out will be used to discredit legitimate concerns about government overreach by mixing them with claims that sound paranoid or conspiratorial. I don't know. I'm second-guessing everything at this point. What I do know is that I've crossed a line I can't uncross. For better or worse, I've made my choice. I've spoken out. And now I have to live with whatever consequences come from that. If you're reading this days or weeks from now, and I'm still updating, still alive, still free, then maybe I was wrong about how immediate the danger was. Maybe speaking out publicly actually provided some protection. Maybe the system isn't quite as far gone as I feared. But if I've gone silent, if this account goes dark, if news comes out about me that seems designed to discredit everything I've said here, then you'll know the truth. You'll know that I was right. And you'll know what you're up against. Stay vigilant. Ask questions. Demand transparency. Don't let them normalize the erosion of your rights and freedoms. And whatever you do, actually read the fucking bills your representatives are voting for. Democracy dies in darkness, but it also dies in plain sight, buried in 1,200 pages of legislative text that nobody bothers to read. Don't let that happen. This is David Brennan, signing off for now.